Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is from the corner of your eye in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 66, Secrets of the Uzumaki, Mixed Bags. The next area is, of course, just as dark as all the previous ones. Naruto holds up his light, sure as steady as ever. He's getting real good at this jutsu just from the sheer practice, cause having it flicker is way different here in a dark cave system than when you're on the road with Yamato-sensei. Unlike all the others, though, there's stuff here. A sleeping bag laid out on the floor. Just a sleeping bag, here in the tunnels, and a little circle of ashes and sticks that could only be the remnants of a fire. Naruto gapes at it, and Karen drops his hand, immediately moving to press her finger into the ashes. Cold, she says, glancing up at him. But I don't think it's that old. She sounds unsure, but it's not like Naruto knows enough to help her with that. Still, he comes up, dropping next to her and sticking his finger in just the same. Yep, cold, not a drop of warmness to this. If they're in the caves, Naruto says, scrunching up his face into his thinking face that Sakura says makes him look like he needs to use the bathroom, then they've gotten be in the next one, yeah? And, if they're here, he swallows sharply. He could be wrong. They don't know what's on the other end, after all. But Karen nods. They're probably in Uzumaki. They sit there, staring, quiet at the sleeping bag. He doesn't know what to do. Part of him wants to sit here and wait until they come back, but they don't know how long that would be. There's no pack, no food, nothing to indicate that someone will come back right now. The sleeping bag doesn't mean anything, if they've got more than one or something, or if it's just easier to leave this here and sleep at an inn or... Well, Naruto can think of a bunch of different reasons and they hurt his brain, piling on top of each other like that, so he just accepts they don't know when the person's gonna get back. One bag, Karen says, eyes focused on it. He glances at her. Probably only one person. So they couldn't open the chest and get the book. Oh. Naruto hadn't thought about that. Of course the person sleeping here had to have known about the chest with the book, probably sealed it back up when they realized they couldn't open it. He thinks it's probably hard, nowadays, to find Uzumakis. At least, that's what it seems like, but it also feels like if anyone looked for 2 seconds they could probably find one, but nobody cares to or knows how to. We should leave a note, he says, because that makes the most sense to him. We can tell them that we took the book in the chest and who we are so they can write us a letter or something. They don't have time to be waiting here for however long it takes, and he bets their team is super worried about them, so really they should just finish this and keep going. Karen hesitates, frowning. I don't know, she says, and even if there's hesitance in her voice, Naruto always likes it when she speaks up, so he gives her his attention. Those guys before, Sasuke's brother and stuff, they were after you, Naruto. I don't want to lead anyone to you. That's a point, but good thing that Naruto has a point back. Those guys definitely know I'm in Konoha, he says, and she accepts that with a little grimace. So if we just say hey, we're Naruto and Karen Uzumaki and we live in Konoha and we figure you're a Uzumaki too, so why don't you send us a letter? That's fine, right? He manages to say it all in one breath. He's very pleased with himself. Karen huffs, narrowing her eyes at him. Fine. She drops her bag on the ground and pulls out the notebook Yukamai gave her earlier. Karen scribbles on the paper and then shoves it in his face and he goes cross-eyed. How does that look? He can't make heads or tails of it. It's in the secret Uzumaki writing language stuff. He tells her so, and she nods. Good. Karen tears the page out and sets it on the sleeping bag, so prominent that no one can miss it, and stands up. Let's keep going. Ah, wait. Naruto stumbles to his feet and promptly douses the light. Karen yelps and immediately grabs his arm in a vice lock. Warn me. Sorry. There's no seals to be seen, though, no faint little glowing on the walls or in the ceiling or the floor, and so he lights it back up. He's really good and practiced at this. It's fun. Okay, he says. Now I'm ready. The next area is a tunnel, like before, and they head down it. Naruto can't help but wonder if there are dozens of little tunnels they're missing. If they should be wandering in the dark, watching out for dimly glowing seals on the walls, venturing into more secrets and hidden Uzumakis. Maybe there was a whole world down here. Dozens, maybe even 100 people, hidden away from the surface and people who would want to kill them, safe only where they can't see the sun. Maybe there's expansive tunnels and they travel all over the earth. He could keep wandering until he hit Kiri, or Iwa, or maybe even walk under the ocean. Maybe there's no one here but skeletons. He doesn't look for more seals. But the quiet is too quiet, too nothing for his state of mind, nothing but their stepping and breathing, and it makes him want to climb up the wall, and so Naruto talks because he doesn't know what else to do. Karen, he asks. Do you like Konoha? It's a weird thing to ask, he feels like it is. He swallows, harsh and dry and sharp, but if he can't ask her this here, in the empty tunnels of their family, he doesn't think he could ask it anywhere else. Do you like being on Team 7? Living with me, he wants to ask, but that's a bit too much. He loves Karen. Naruto will unashamedly admit he loves his cousin. He knows a lot of people feel weird about saying that, but he doesn't. Having someone he can admit that about is one of the best feelings. He loves Sakura and Sasuke, too, but he thinks if he said that out loud then they wouldn't take it the same as Karen, and the thought of it also makes him want to burn up. But even if he loves Karen very much, he doesn't know her. Sometimes it feels like she's swallowing herself up inside, making herself smaller like how Sakura used to do sometimes, but not around him. But sometimes he feels like it's real, like she's kinda like Hinata and weird but good in that way. And sometimes she feels more like Sasuke, like there's so many things eating her up inside that she doesn't even know where to begin. But not as bad as Sasuke, cause Naruto thinks nobody has as many things taking bites out of them like Sasuke does. But Karen is Karen, and Naruto wants to know her. Yeah, she says, and it's after a bit of quiet thought, of not responding, so he knows it's gotta be true or close to it. It's different, she says. And dangerous. But I like it. And, Karen pauses, but doesn't hesitate. It's a good distinction. I think I'm going to learn how to do seals. Naruto swallows sharply and nods, glancing away. He knew it. He knew she would, and she'll be good at it, he thinks. She's really smart and she's good. And Naruto? Karen asks, and oh, he's tearing up a little. He sniffles, wipes at his eyes, and her grip on his hand gets stronger. Naruto, what's wrong? He told Sasuke, and now he can tell Karen, and so he does. I don't want to be my dad, he says, quiet. Feels like, people want me to be, sometimes. Like the pervy sage. And dad did seals and I don't want to be the same as him, but, he hunches his shoulders. I want to learn seals like how our clan did. Our clan. It takes exciting in his mouth, like Sakura's lightning jutsu. Karen's quiet for a moment and then she pulls back. Before he can say a single word she hauls her entire bag off her backpack and swings it, smacking it into his side. Ow, that kinda hurts? You're an idiot, she says. He opens his mouth to protest and she hits him again and holds the bag threateningly, and even though it really actually doesn't hurt he shuts his mouth. You can still learn seals. There's so many different kinds, and if you want to do it, who cares if your dad did it too? She's glaring at him, but it's not like an I'm gonna kill you glare, but a nice glare, like when Sasuke glares. They glare because they care. We can have 2 seal masters on the team and you can learn stuff that you want to learn, and the pervy sage is awful anyway. And dash, she sucks in a breath and slips the bag back on her shoulders. You should learn the really powerful stuff, anyway, Karen says. I'm probably going to do support stuff. Storage and maybe tags. I'm not, her face turns into a frown. I'm not that great, so. Naruto decides fair's fair and smacks her with his bag. She stares at him, eyes completely wide, and it's honestly super funny, but he doesn't laugh at her. Well, you're stupid, too, he says. You're really great, Karen. You're really smart and you practice taijutsu with Lee's team, and it's not your fault your village was super awful. I dash. He hits her again, just cause she hit him twice, and she rolls her eyes. I was going to say okay. I doesn't sound even slightly like okay, but he won't push it. We can both learn seals. We're both smart. We're both good ninja. Okay. She sounds like she's saying it just so they don't start wailing on each other with the bags, which, does sound fun, but it's still nice to hear. He'll check with Sakura. If Sakura thinks he's being stupid for not doing seals, then okay, he'll do them. He wants to ask Kakashi-sensei, too, but Kakashi-sensei knew his dad and everyone else didn't, and he doesn't know how he'll feel if Kakashi-sensei says he shouldn't. Fine, he says, but he sticks out his tongue. She blinks and then does the same, and then they hold hands and keep going. There's no more dead ends with funky seals and weird rooms, and instead there's just one single dead end after walking for what feels like hours. Though it's definitely not hours. It's got the 4 seals on it in a square, and the setup's really familiar to him, now. Naruto thinks if he sees it anywhere else he'll recognize it immediately. Think that's the way out, he asks. Karen shrugs. There's only one way, so I hope so. She's the one with the free hand, so she bites her thumb again and drags it over and they step through the light. And fall. Naruto trips over nothing, face planting, and drags Karen down with him. He's disoriented, a little nauseous, and it feels as strange as their first trip through when they went through the floor. They lay there for a moment and then Karen sits up, turning around and laughs. What? Naruto asks, not moving. We came through a tree, she breathes between choking laughter, and Naruto turns around to see the seal's light fading into the wood and then he joins her because what? What? He doesn't get seals at all but he can't wait. They finish giggling hysterically and stand up, and then Naruto presses his hands together in a familiar seal and like a million Narutos burst into existence around them. Spread out, he says, even though they're totally on the same page as him, and they run off in a million different directions to find their team. Karen, behind him, squints at the sky. We weren't in there too long, she says, though Naruto honestly hadn't been paying attention before they went inside so he has no idea. That's good, he says with a shrug. He figures they shouldn't move till they know where they're going, and Karen seems good right here too. Hope they're not too worried. Karen gives him a look, like, are you talking about our team? Which is fair. But before she can say anything one of Naruto's clones explode and he's struck by the sudden knowledge of oh, cool, they found them. They're not far, he says, jumping to his feet, which seems weird because the tunnels were so big but also his teammates are fast so really Naruto's just gonna stop thinking about this. Come on, this way. He leads the way, Karen a heartbeat behind, and the rest of his clones start poofing out one by one with the awareness that they're not needed anymore. The rush of info is dizzying, but they barely existed for very long so there's not a lot to process, just a bunch of little stuff. Soon all of them are gone but one clone, niggling on the edge of his chakra. This one, he spots, just up ahead. It darts through the trees and sees him, grins, and promptly disappears. Sasuke and Sakura are 2 steps behind it and they tackle the Uzumakis. Sakura's got both arms wrapped around their shoulders like a vice, smashing Karen and Naruto together, shoulder to shoulder. She's shaking, tears in her eyes, and her cheek rests against Karen's and she breathes in, breathes out, deeply. Sasuke's got a hang slung around Naruto's waist and the other with a death grip on Karen's wrist and he rests his forehead in the crook of Naruto's neck and his breaths puff along his jacket. He shakes, too, and Naruto wraps his own arms around them both as much as he can and Karen does the same and Yamato-sensei, Yakamai in his arms, stops a few feet away and just watches the 4 of them curled into each other on the ground. You idiot, Sakura says, shifting slightly so her cheek presses against Naruto's instead and he flushes. Don't ever do that again, Sasuke murmurs, the first words Naruto's heard from him since he ran off last night, and Naruto's heart is so full he thinks he's gonna burst. I'm sorry, he says, cause this very tangible reminder that they love him too is just so much, and he starts crying. Chapter 67, Secrets of the Uzumaki, Conspiracy. The moment her teammates disappeared is a moment Sakura's going to remember for a long time. Yeah, everything turned out fine in the end. No one was hurt, honestly, it was a good thing overall that they did so. But it still didn't stop her fear, in the moment. Yamato-sensei hadn't known what to do. He had ideas, he tried to reopen whatever path Naruto had, stupidly. Opened up, but it wouldn't work. No one's blood would work, all 4 of them tried. None of them had any summons, so they couldn't split up too far, so it was Yamato-sensei and Yokomai going one way and Sakura and Sasuke with a Yamato-sensei clone going the other way. If Yamato-sensei found Naruto and Karen first, he'd make another clone and then poof it to let them know. If Sakura and Sasuke found them, the clone they were with would poof. "I can't believe them," Sasuke had said softly, his first words of the day. "Him," she corrected. "You can't believe Karen had anything to do with Naruto being that stupid." The faintest smile, the faintest curve of his lips, and he gave the slightest nod. "True." And then they were quiet. Sakura had honestly been bound and determined to smack Naruto at least once for all the trouble he had put the rest of the team through, but when they finally find each other and get past the initial tears and hugs of relief, she's gripped by a sheer fury of "Naruto, you're such an idiot," and raises her hand and he makes an alarmed face and ducks. "Ah, come on, Sakura. Karen already got me." She blinks once, twice, and turns to look at the other girl. Karen hunches in, drawing her shoulders up to her ears. "He deserved it," she says, not meeting any of their eyes. A laugh bubbles out of Sakura and she lowers her hand to instead take Karen's and give it a squeeze, and the other girl jerks up and stares at her. "Good job," Sakura tells her, and she loves the pleased expression it nets her. Sasuke has apparently, again, used up his word quota for the day and has stuck himself right in between the two Uzumakis. She's worried about him, worried about last night, but she doesn't want to press him and she wants to give him his space, and even if she did want to press him she thinks it's best to not do so in front of everyone, so she's quiet about it for now. Besides, they're going to go home, soon, and then Sakura has her own problems to face. She doesn't want to think about that. Instead, she listens as Karen and Naruto tell them everything. Karen pulls out the book and shows it off, but she can't make any sense of it. Still, she takes it and leafs through it while they continue. "Another Uzumaki in the tunnels?" And then stops, when she hits the back cover. "You guys," she says, interrupting Naruto's rambling excitement over what if. "The Uzumaki is from AIM and coming this way cause of Naruto's letter." They don't quite hear her and she tries again, a little louder. "You guys." Gazes snap towards her. "Did you see this?" She opens the book to the back cover. There, scrawled in ink, is a simple phrase. Not coded at all, nor in secret clan writing. "Who killed the Uzumaki?" Karen turns slightly. "Yamato-sensei." But he's caught on, and he's shaking his head. "I don't know who destroyed Uzushio. I have never been well versed in the history of the other nations." There's a careful way he's saying that, a delicate way, like he's skirting around something as only ninja can, and Yokomai frowns at him. "What are you talking about?" she asks, and Sakura cringes a little because you don't ask that when someone clearly doesn't want to talk about it. But they're siblings, so? She doesn't really understand their relationship. No one knows that. What? They all sort of stare at her and she flushes under her freckles a little at the attention. I mean, no one I've talked to has ever known. And I've asked a lot of people. I really like history, and traveling, and I ask a lot of questions about the different nations and no one has ever known. A mystery, some people have said, though I guess somebody's gotta know. Huh. That's another secret, Naruto whispers, eyes wide with an emotion Sakura can't quite pinpoint. She's not sure how he feels, not sure how she'd feel if her entire family was a secret like this. Yamato-sensei gives a slight shake of his head. "To civilians," he says, and it's a gentle correction. "Ask Captain. If he does not know, then it is truly a secret known only to the Uzumakis." Sakura has realized, more and more, how much being a shinobi is lying. How it is keeping secrets and never speaking, and she looks at Yokomai and Yamato-sensei and wonders how many secrets there are between a pair of siblings, between a civilian and a shinobi. How many things she hasn't told her family, not just secrets that aren't hers to tell but simple things like the scar that curls around her body. Even that, she cannot tell them. She thinks she understands, a little more, why her dad doesn't want her to stay a shinobi. They move fast, returning to the village. It's not a leisurely walk like before. Sakura's pretty sure it's because Yamato-sensei almost lost two of them, but when she voices it aloud, he shoots her his scary look. "No," he says, his sister in his arms. It's because there's an enemy so close. The genin blink at each other. An enemy? Naruto asks, completely baffled. Sakura frowns. The Uzumaki. Yamato-sensei inclines his head. Yes. The Uzumaki, we need to let the Hokage know, and return. Why does the Hokage need to know? Why is this such a huge deal? Do they think that there are countless more tunnels? A secret Uzumaki army lying in wait underground. Sasuke finds his voice again. There aren't any more civilian Uzumakis, are there? He asks, and Yamato-sensei shakes his head. It's unlikely, he says simply, and that gives them all something to chew over. Naruto keeps sneaking glances over at Sakura as they run, as they skip from tree to tree, but when she tips her head at him he shakes his. She'll have to ask him later, she thinks, and she wonders how many things she's put off until later and completely forgotten about, in all of the madness that seems to overtake their lives. She just wants to breathe. Is that too much to ask? Is it too much to have a simple mission, to not have revelations about secrets and long-lost clans, of conspiracies that threaten the very nature of her village, or emotional exhaustion that seeps weariness deep into her bones? Sakura wonders if other teams have to deal with this. Some might. She thinks of Hinata and the other rookies standing behind her, and of her older cousin and the anguish he had poured out against Naruto. Of Gaara and his demon, of Ino Shikacho and their bedridden Asuma-sensei, of Team Orochimaru and their exhaustion and loss. Maybe that's everyone, right now. Because it feels like there's no stability, none at all, and Sakura just wants to be back on solid ground. Karin and Naruto are whisked away with Yamato-sensei and Yukimai to report to the Hokage. Sakura stares after them for a moment, tired and hollow, but catches Sasuke's wrist as he goes to walk away. He stiffens up, and she drops it. Sasuke, she says softly, because for as exhausted as she is she doesn't think she could bear if she were Sasuke, not with the tension that lines every inch of his body, not with the weariness etched into every bit of him. If you need us we're here, okay? She doesn't know what else she can say, doesn't know what else to say. Not wanting to press the issue and make it worse, he gives her one sharp nod, not looking in her direction, and then he walks off in the direction of the Uchiha compound. Sakura stares after him and tries not to shiver in the stillness. Uzumaki and Uchiha. Maybe everyone else is also struggling with their own issues, but if Sakura were on a different team, she thinks, it wouldn't be quite like this. Wouldn't be questioning her very village and wondering how many more secrets there are. She sniffs, tears rising to her eyes, and tries so very hard to swallow them down as she turns for home. Ino stops her before she can make it. Sakura, she calls softly, and when she stops and looks, Ino is already crossing the street to her side, brow furrowed and lip caught in her teeth. Hey, she says, putting a gentle hand on her shoulder. Are you okay? It's hitting her all at once. Naruto cried yesterday, ran off in tears. Sasuke had a panic attack and screamed until he refused to speak. Sakura's crying, now, wrapping her arms around Ino and burying her face in her shoulder, and Karin will probably be next. SSSH, says Ino, wrapping her arms around her in turn, tense but not pushing her away, and she gently tugs Sakura out of the street and Sakura lets her. It's awkward, maneuvering like this, but she doesn't want to let go and she's so tired. She wants to lay down and sleep for a week, at least. What's wrong? Ino asks, and Sakura pulls her face out of her shoulder enough to see that Ino's pulled them into the shelter of a closed store. Her best friend's face is a pattern of worry and Sakura is so grateful for her existence she can't speak for a moment. And then she does, a torrent of teary words that make no sense. The Uzumaki and the Uchiha and Sasuke and Naruto and Kakashi-sensei and Karin and dash, she cries, tears dripping down her face. My parents are there divorcing and secrets and dash. Sakura pulls away to touch her scar with one hand, touch the way it curls up her neck, and Ino's eyes widen. I don't know how to tell them, she wails, and her head is tucked back into the crook of Ino's neck. If she shows her parents, it will give her dad more ammunition. More reason to stop her from being a shinobi. And honestly Sakura can't blame him and wonders what it would be like to walk away from this, but she's in too deep now to even try to go another direction. Ino just makes soothing noises, rubs her back and holds her until the tears ebb, until Sakura can breathe again, and then she pulls back so she can smile at her. "Hey," she says softly, and Ino is so good with people sometimes it makes Sakura want to cry even more. She gets why Ino and Sasuke are kind of friends, even if Sasuke can be hard to be friends with sometimes. So can Ino, to be fair. I can go with you to tell your parents, if you want. It doesn't change the weights that drag Sakura down, doesn't magically soothe her exhaustion nor solve the mysteries, but it's something, it's a task made easier, and Sakura nods gratefully. "Thank you, Ino," she says, because right now her best friend is the most beautiful thing in the world. "What are friends for?" Ino says, as if they haven't dealt with years of being shitty awful friends to each other. "You can worry about secret conspiracies that will overthrow the foundation of Konoha later. Let's go get something to eat and then we can go tell them, okay?" Sakura sniffles and nods. "Okay," she says, taking Ino's hand and giving it a squeeze. "Thanks." Ino squeezes back. "I think you know more words than that," she says, and she tugs Sakura along. "So, where do you want to eat?" "I'm watching my figure, nothing too bad, but if we go for healthy we could probably get some dessert." Sakura follows, every step just a little lighter. Ino's right now, just breathe. Focus on those mysteries later. She can do that. A temple. Perhaps father would hate it, that it takes the Uzumakis to remember. Perhaps he would be glad that Sasuke remembers it all, perhaps he has long decided that his youngest son is worthless, that the Uchiha clan died with everyone else, and Sasuke's thoughts of him go nowhere. All are believable, given his father, and Sasuke doesn't like to think about that. Itachi might laugh, if his brother were capable of laughing, hadn't he been the one to hint, so long ago? But Sasuke's memories of the massacre are patchy, coming through in nightmares that distort and exaggerate the truth, and he wonders. No. He can't think, can't try to remember back to that day, try to think if there was another. It hurts enough to question it, remembering is too much. Still. Whatever the reactions, Sasuke has remembered. Carefully, Sasuke moves the seventh tatami mat of the main hall aside to reveal the entrance, and descends into the depths of the Naka shrine. It's so easy to forget. When you're tired, when words flow from your lips without recourse, when you have told so many but not told everyone, it's easy, isn't it, to forget who you have and haven't told. Worry about secret conspiracies that will overthrow the foundation of Konoha later, Ino says, and Sakura thinks nothing of it because it is the truth, because that's all that's on her mind, mystery after mystery, thought after thought, conspiracy after conspiracy and the lingering dread that something is deeply wrong with her village. It's not until later that she realizes. Much later, when there's nothing but reflection and looking back and the realization is too little, too late. Sakura hasn't said a single word about them, hadn't, even in her sobs and her babbles. So what does Ino know of these secrets? Chapter 68, Faces in the Mirror, Tales of Family. Naruto doesn't end up going to Sakura, like he thought he might. Get reassurance from Sakura, and then face Kakashi-sensei. It made sense to him, still makes sense, but that's not really how anything ends up going at all. 'Cause he doesn't want to ask her in front of everyone, and then. First, he and Karen have to tell the old hag everything, have to scrape together every single detail they can from the tunnels, and it's long and boring and he doesn't get why it's so big. Especially because he can't stop thinking about what Sasuke said. About there being no more Uzumaki civilians. He's glad that there isn't a war, right now. That he can write to AIM and eagerly await a reply and know they're not enemies even if they're not technically friends. No more civilians. How many Uzumaki were there really, then? How many were killed before that desperate flight through the tunnels? How many were killed afterwards? Was the Uzumaki, he hoped, he didn't see how they couldn't be, that was in the tunnels one of the ones he was waiting on an answer from, or was there another? By contrast, Namikaze, 2 civilians, those were his grandparents. There's exactly one picture of them, in the album that Kakashi-sensei gave him. 2 grandmothers he never got to meet, but when he squints at himself in the mirror, he thinks he can see the resemblance. One of his grandmothers had crazy hair that sticks right up, and no matter how much Naruto tries he can't flatten his, so he thinks that must come from her. His other grandmother squints with light eyes the same shade as his, or at least it seems like it. The picture is old and kind of faded, and all three of them smile the same, his two grandmothers, his father, in the old picture from when Namikaze Minato graduated from the academy. Kakashi-sensei doesn't even know their names. He doesn't even know their names, or what happened to them, just that by the time Kakashi-sensei met Namikaze Minato, they were gone, but he does have this picture, carefully retrieved from belongings after the fourth Hokage passed. There was so much destroyed, so many things lost, but this was a picture that he had kept on himself, kept tucked within his jacket, and a 14-year-old Kakashi-sensei had taken it. Naruto's so grateful he did. On the other side, there were no pictures of his mother's parents. Not a whisper. Kakashi-sensei knew nothing. They most likely passed when Uzushio fell, he had said, and the thought of that city still. He wants to go, someday. Wants to see the rubble and sift through its secrets. Go with other Uzumaki, with Karen, and the Uzumaki from AIM and the Uzumaki from the tunnels, and every single one he can find, every single Uzumaki scattered across the nations, and then they can go and rebuild and... But, no. That would mean leaving Konoha, wouldn't it? So it was just a dream, just a waking dream that lingered on the edges of sleep, of waves of Uzumaki red and him at the front, bright and blonde, leading the way. He glances over at Karen, the only red he's found so far, the only Uzumaki. They're walking quietly, headed in the vague direction that's both their apartment and Ichiraku. Her gaze is ahead, on the ground a little in front of her, and he can't tell what she's thinking at all. Karen, he asks softly, and she tilts her head up and looks at him. I wanna go talk to Kakashi-sensei about something. Okay, she says, and she angles her feet slightly, turns towards the east so they can cross the road and head over, but Naruto shakes his head. Just me. Is that okay? He worries about her. She doesn't sleep super well, and now that he knows what she knows about her nightmares and the Uchiha massacre, he doesn't blame her. Seeing all those people die was bad enough, but then trying to figure out why it was so wrong, so strange. That's hard. He thinks she worries about him, too. Naruto feels sometimes like he's going to be swallowed up by all of this, by the mysteries and the loss and the weight on his shoulders. He thinks they all kinda feel that way. Naruto's supposed to be a grown-up, but when he thinks about the way his home might be bad and rotted and gross underneath, like one time when he bit into an apple and it looked fine but was actually black in the middle and made him throw up, well, it makes him want to throw up like he did on that day. So Naruto worries, and Karen worries, and Sakura worries, and Sasuke worries, and they all cry a lot and don't sleep, and Karen nods. Okay, she says again. I'm going to get some ramen. She keeps walking, and Naruto remembers how she worked at Ichiraku for a little before deciding to really be a ninja, which feels like forever ago. Like years and years ago, even though it wasn't, and he hopes that maybe old man Tookie and Ayam can help Karen. If Karen needs help. What is he saying? They all need some help. Or at least a hug. Wait, he says, thinking that, and she stops, only a few feet away, and Naruto lunges forward and hugs her. She stiffens in his arms, surprised, but when he doesn't let go she squeezes him back and they hold each other tight on the side of the street. I don't get you at all, Naruto, she says, and it sounds like she's trying to complain but can't help how warm her words are, and she sniffles a little and wipes at her eyes, and then he's pulling back and does the same, and then they're smiling at each other. Karen rolls her eyes and shoves him. Go, she says. Idiot. Naruto likes this Karen who isn't afraid of using her words, and hopes that she keeps at it, that sharing the secrets that plagued her had been the thing silencing her, and now she would keep using them. Okay, Naruto says, his time to use the word, and he turns and jogs away. Naruto doesn't bother to wait for the door to be opened when he gets there. He tries the doorknob, and when it's unlocked, he knocks, and then just opens it. Kakashi-sensei is napping on the couch, and he blinks slowly at him with his single eye. Naruto, he asks, sitting up with a yawn under his mask, and swinging his legs around. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto chirps, cause he can't help but feel a little better looking at him, even if it's weird to see his teacher without his vest. He hopes Kakashi-sensei has the surgery soon and then is all better and can be his teacher again. He shuts the door behind him and plops on the couch. Kakashi-sensei ruffles his hair, but Naruto actually likes it, unlike his teammates, and so his smile doesn't waver. "Where's Guy-sensei?" He's on a mission with his team," Kakashi-sensei says. "They left this morning." "Ah," Naruto says, and then he looks at his knees and studies the orange fabric for a second because he really finds it hard to ask. "How was your mission?" Kakashi-sensei asks. Naruto squints at him, looks away from the orange and meets his teacher's single, soft eye. He's pretty sure almost dying made Kakashi-sensei super sentimental, and honestly he's really okay with that. Well, not the almost dying part. Though the almost was good. "Yamato-sensei hasn't been here yet, has he?" he asks, and when Kakashi-sensei shakes his head, Naruto grimaces a little. Well, we found a bunch of books and scrolls and stuff in a secret Uzumaki language. So Karen's gonna teach me and stuff. We also kinda found a secret Uzumaki tunnel and a secret book." Kakashi-sensei's gaze goes flat. "Explain," he says, and Naruto sighs and recounts all the details again. Telling people was really exciting the first time, but there's only so many times he can describe it without feeling like he's going a little bonkers, cause it's not like it was some super cool adventure with fighting and enemies and cool jutsus. But really just wandering holding hands with a little ball of light, which was kinda cool. But he's glad when Kakashi-sensei's done asking him and leans back with a sigh. "What am I going to do with you?" he says, and Naruto shrugs because he doesn't have an answer. "Wait, yes he does. Answer my question," he tries, and Kakashi-sensei cracks open his eye and glances at him. "What question?" There's a lot that Naruto could ask. A lot of secrets bubbling over his tongue. Are they safe now? What about the problems, about the old man and Kakashi-sensei knowing about bad rotten things in Konoha? What about the Uchiha, about the Uzumaki not being civilians, about so many things? There's so many things he could ask, but Naruto's stomach is twisted in knots and he has one question to ask. "Do you think I'm like my dad?" he asks, and he doesn't look at Kakashi-sensei and picks at a thread on his pants. Should I try to be like him? He can't spit out the specific question, "Do you want me to be?" and just keeps pulling at the string. He might make a hole. It's okay if he does. Cause I know Raiznan and I've got toads and I kinda want to maybe learn sealing, but he did that too and dash. Kakashi-sensei sets a hand on his head and Naruto stops talking. He doesn't look at him, still. "Naruto," he says quietly. "Does anyone make you feel like you should be like him?" Naruto squirms a little bit. "Pervy Sage," he says quietly, which is funny because Pervy Sage wouldn't even tell him that the fourth Hokage was his dad, but he told Naruto that he reminded him of his dad and taught him all sorts of his dad's tricks, and he's a seal master, and it all kinda adds up in a way that makes Naruto feel bad inside. Kakashi-sensei is quiet for a moment more and then the hand on Naruto's head shifts and there's an arm wrapping around his shoulder and he pulls Naruto into him. "Did you know your mom wanted to be the Hokage, too?" Naruto had no idea, and he jerks his head up and stares at Kakashi-sensei and his teacher's eye is soft. He pats Naruto's side, awkward but real, and he scratches at his mask with his other hand and glances away. "People called her the hot-blooded habanero. You make me think of her," he says, and it makes Naruto's heart beat fast. "But I think you're also like your father. You've got a very big heart." Kakashi-sensei sighs, and meets Naruto's gaze again. "I don't think Jiraiya wants you to be a copy of Minato-sensei," he says. "And I don't want you to be a copy of Kushina. If you're like them, that's okay. If you're not, that's okay, too." He looks uncomfortable, this blatant display of emotions, but Naruto is so grateful for it he can't even feel bad for Kakashi-sensei. "All right." Naruto starts crying. He starts crying and he leans into Kakashi-sensei and smears his snotty face all over his shirt and he's as stiff as a board, but he doesn't push him away. Iruka-sensei might be if Naruto had to choose someone who's like a parent, it'd be Iruka-sensei, but Kakashi-sensei knew both his parents and still thinks like this in it. "Thanks," Naruto says, and Kakashi-sensei gives him a careful pat on the back like he's made of glass and is gonna break at any moment. "Anytime," he says, his voice tight, bad with emotions as ever, but he doesn't pull away. Hinata sits alone eating ramen. It's not lonely, she spends time with her team, and with her sister, and now with Niji, and sometimes it's okay to spend time alone. She likes ramen, even if her father would probably disapprove if he knew, but Hinata is unfortunately made of things her father disapproves of. Karen. Ayame greets with cheer, and Hinata looks up to see Naruto's cousin slipping into Ichiraku. She smiles back. "Hi, Ayame," she says, and she grabs a seat next to Hinata. "Hi, Hinata," she says, too, as if the last time they talked hadn't been in a hospital after everything had fallen apart, and Hinata manages a little smile. Karen orders and Hinata wants to speak up, wants to say something so bad, but her mind goes completely blank and she sucks down some more noodles instead. In the end, Karen's the one who says something, the one with the bravery. "Hinata," Karen says, and she looks up to meet the other girl's gaze. "I wanted to talk to you about something." Hinata swallows and nods. About what?" she asks quietly, because she honestly can't think of any reason Karen would need to ask her something. She hesitates. "Your cousin's seal," she says, and Hinata goes cold. She had felt the way, in that fight, when Niji lost his composure and told the whole world, how her fellow genin shifted. How they squinted at her, just a little bit, how their gaze was uneven, how this most likely changed how they viewed her. None of them had taken back their pledges, had taken back their support, but she still felt the shift. Kiba asked her about it. Shino asked her about it. Shikamaru had swept a knowing gaze over her and Shuji had hesitated but let Ino ask her if it was true, after. None of Team 7 had approached her, but Hinata should have known it was only a matter of time. It got lost in the hubbub, got lost in the rubble and the death and the destruction, in the invasion and in Orochimaru and in the mass funeral and the new Hokage, how 2 teachers had lost their partner and another teacher had nearly died, but that didn't mean that it was forgotten, easily, the crimes of the Hyuga clan. She thinks the adults have all known, all along. That it's just common knowledge and no one does anything, and that makes her feel sick inside. Hinata feels sick, right now. "It's true," Hinata says, staring down at her ramen. Asking doesn't mean she's hated, that she's judged. Shino and Kiba had reassured her of that. He wasn't lying. Karen is quiet for a second longer, quiet enough for Ayame to set her bowl down in front of her, but Hinata thinks Ayame can sense that this isn't just a non-conversation, can feel that tension in the air like a plucked string, and so the woman doesn't linger. Karen takes a bite and the slurp of the noodles is loud in the quiet and Hinata feels uncomfortable, so she takes another bite herself. "Hinata," she finally says. "When you're the leader of the Hyuga clan, are you going to keep going with them?" Hinata's eyes go wide and she looks up at Karen, she's staring at her intently. It's dangerous to say, but Hinata doesn't think Karen would be someone to tell her father, so Hinata shakes her head very, very slightly. Karen breaks out in a grin that's just like her cousin's. "Good," she says. "'Cause I want to learn sealing, and I want to help." "Are you sure this is the best way to go about it?" the girl asks. Her voice is skeptical, echoing off the walls. The man just laughs. "Do you have a better idea?" He can't see her, couldn't even if his eyes were open, but he can practically feel her frown, can picture the way that her arms cross over her chest in a way that reminds him of another with a pang so vivid it hurts them both. "No," she grumbles after a moment. "But if you get us both killed, I'll kill you again." Don't worry," he says, and he smiles. She mutters under her breath and he ignores it. "Don't you trust me?" "I don't trust you to not be an idiot," she snaps back without even a moment's pause, but he knows what to expect, knows her so deeply that no matter how much she snarls, he knows they're on the same page, knows they trust each other dearly. They're quiet for a moment more, nothing but silence, nothing but them in this dark space, away from light and air and everything living in this world. "Don't worry," the man says, opening his eyes to the darkness. "We will get out of here. I've got a bone to pick." He feels her shift, feels her loosen a little. "So do I," she says, and neither says another word. Chapter 69, Faces in the Mirror, to worry, to wonder. Naruto does remember to ask, before he goes, before he slips back to Karen and before he releases his teacher from the difficult task of showing emotions. Kakashi-sensei, I got one more question, he says, and he can see the faint trace of alarm that crosses his teacher's face because all of them know Kakashi-sensei hates dealing with emotional stuff, but his teacher quashes and sighs, resigned. What is it? He asks. It makes him feel warm, makes him feel nice, that Kakashi-sensei will push his misgivings aside to help him like this, but Naruto doesn't have something emotional to ask him. Well, not emotional for Kakashi-sensei. It's kinda a big deal for him. Kakashi-sensei, do you know, he wavers, a little, but he remembers what Yamato-sensei had said and pushes on. Do you know who destroyed Uzushio? He looks a little taken aback at the question, which Naruto guesses makes sense because he had just been crying into his teacher about being like his parents, but now his eyes hurt and his face is dry and his heart is happy, so he wants to ask this question, before he forgets. Because he will forget. No, Kakashi-sensei says after a moment, mulling it over. I don't. He heaves a great big sigh, like Naruto is asking the most difficult thing in the world of him. Ma. Should I look into it? He lights up. Could you? Thanks Kakashi-sensei, you're the beast. Naruto goes in for another hug, and his teacher is stiff but still pats his back and sighs again. I'm almost finished with my book, so I might as well, he says, even though he makes it sound like a big pain. Naruto's about to tell him that he doesn't want to hear about Kakashi-sensei's porn thanks, but then he remembers Kakashi-sensei burned his gross porn book and he's curious enough that even if he'll regret it later, he's gonna ask. What ya reading? Kakashi-sensei smiles, which means Naruto instantly regrets, and whips out a copy of Parenting for Dummies from behind him. It's about parenting when you have dummies, he says, gleeful, and Naruto drops the hug like Kakashi-sensei's on fire. Kakashi-sensei he whines, cheeks hot, and he pouts at him. Time slips by. It's the first time in what feels like forever, but she knows it hasn't really been that long, since Sakura hasn't had anything she's had to do. Naruto, Karen, and her all show up to their usual meeting spot the next day, no sign of Sasuke, only for one of Kakashi-sensei's dogs to meet them there. Pakun, of course, who is cute in an ugly sort of way, and it's not the first time she's thought that, who has a message to deliver. They can do D-ranks on their own if they want, the three of them, well, he says four, but Sasuke never showed, but for the moment, they're free. Yamato-sensei has a mission and Kakashi-sensei, well, he can't teach. If they want him to arrange training with someone for them, he can, but that's it. So it's strange. Sakura really doesn't know what to do with her shinobi career at the moment, so she coaxes Naruto to teach her the light jutsu he had used in the tunnels, joins Karen when she trains with what Gai-sensei gave her, which is, terrifying, but given that Karen and Lee have a weird sort of friendship it makes sense she would have that, and sits next to her and tries to decipher the strange Uzumaki language. Karen tries to teach her, but she's also got something else on her mind. Karen, she thinks, is running herself a little ragged. She's either training or she's desperately trying to figure out the coded book or scouring through bingo books, or she has notes and notes of seals, poring over books and scrolls retrieved from their last mission. She occasionally disappears with them, a grimace on her face, and comes back with scribbled notes from someone else. There are bags underneath her eyes, and Sakura worries for her. It hasn't been that long since she was cast under attack as Jutsu, which they still haven't talked about, and she's pretty sure Karen still has nightmares. Naruto coaxes her to sleep, or to go over and eat at Iruka-sensei's, and even though she snaps at him she still caves. Sakura can't really do anything, can't really help, so she lets Naruto handle it. She's worried about Sasuke, too. Sakura hasn't seen him. Not really. He has yet to emerge for one of their get-togethers, for Naruto and Sakura doing some D-ranks together when Naruto needs more cash, he never says that's why, but Sakura doesn't need him to explain, and Sakura actually went to go ask Kakashi-sensei if he had seen him. Don't worry, Kakashi-sensei says, as if that's possible, as if she can just turn off that part of her. I've talked to him. He's doing some Mednin training right now. She makes a face. She doesn't like the fact that Sasuke is leaving and going out and yet none of them have seen him at all. Maybe he just needs time apart, though, but she feels anxious about it. About time looming over them, secrets to figure out, people who could be plotting. And she's worried about Kakashi-sensei, too, about the upcoming surgery that no one is speaking of, and she knows it's coming. She's gone over sometimes and he's not there, and when she asks, he gives one of his weird responses, so she figures it has to be that. There's so much they don't talk about, so much hanging in the air, but she just swallows it down and nods. Sakura stakes out the hospital, though, a few days later, and watches for Sasuke. She doesn't approach him, doesn't address him, just watches as he leaves through the front door and skips up to the rooftops and disappears. He's not close enough that she can really see how he looks, but he's alive and she's got proof of it, and even if she trusts Kakashi-sensei, well, it makes Sakura feel better to see it for herself. At home it's uneasy. Her parents aren't openly fighting, their differences settled, paperwork processing, she's not sure what's going to happen, living situation-wise. No one has said anything and Sakura hasn't asked. They both try to be cheerful, but Sakura is 13 and not stupid, and she simply pastes on a fake smile in return and tries to stay away as much as she can. The added bonus of her newly revealed scar doesn't help matters, because it makes her mom look distant and adds tense wrinkles around her dad's eyes, and she staunchly refuses to let them turn it into a big deal, so she stays away. It's difficult, though. She's not the kind of girl who wants to train every waking moment, even if she is training more now in the past than she was before. Ino, while willing to spend time with her, is also spending a lot of time busy at the hospital. Asuma-sensei is going through physical therapy to get out, though Sakura really doesn't know details. Ino doesn't offer, she doesn't ask, it seems like that's too many of her relationships, nowadays. It's okay, though. Sakura is fine. Really, she is. She only has one more crying fit, burying her face deep in her pillow and trying to be quiet enough that neither of her parents hear her, and given neither of them come to check on her, she thinks she succeeds. Who she does spend time with, though, is Hyuga Hoito and Ryo. She learns that, the first time she meets Ryo, that he's a Hyuga, that they both are, that the reason they live together is because they're married. Which makes a lot of sense. He seems tired, though. His messy brown hair is limp, eyes with what seem like perpetual bags, and he's quiet almost the whole time she's there, and it makes Sakura feel like she's intruding. When Hyuga Hoito walks her to the door, she asks him quietly if she is. The man surveys her, considering. His whole team is gone, he says quietly. Not just Kabuto. Gone. Such an empty word. Maybe they were dead, and Kabuto killed them and hid their bodies. Maybe they were traitors, just the same. With all that weighing on him, no wonder he was thought a traitor. And with all that weighing on him, and that same suspicion, and the death of Anko, well, no wonder he seemed tired. You can come back, Hyuga Hoito says. We don't get a lot of visitors. So she does. She does, and even if they don't really talk, simply because Hoito doesn't seem like a huge talker and Ryo seems to exist in the same perpetual state of trauma that Sasuke does. Oh, Sasuke, Sakura talks. She tells them about her teammates, steering away from the more sensitive bits, about how her training is going and about how she doesn't really know what she wants to specialize in, about how this is the first bit of downtime she's had in a while and it feels weird, about how Ino is her best non-team friend and, maybe. You can't tell anyone, she says, as if they speak to anyone she knows, and Hoito just gives her a solemn nod and even Ryo meets her eyes. But I might, like girls. I'm still figuring it out. Kakashi-sensei might have a boyfriend, but it's not like she can talk to him about emotions in any capacity. Sasuke is currently far too deep in his own head for her to reach, and Kurane-sensei is currently mourning over her girlfriend. Lover? Partner? So it would just seem cruel, especially because of Asuma-sensei's current state. Hoito nods again. Do you want to talk about it? He asks, and when Sakura shakes her head because she doesn't want to, not yet, he drops it. It's very nice of him. Even though they don't talk as much as she does, Sakura learns about them. Hoito is expecting a team from the batch graduating next year, the ones after Sakura, or if not them, the year after. He grimaces a little. This may have delayed it, he says, and she nods solemnly even if she thinks that's kind of stupid. Why wouldn't they be trusted? Clearly, they're sticking around. But she thinks of Naruto, and has to bite her lip because Konoha isn't always the best, and she doesn't like it. Meeting with them and seeing Ryo's eyes and the way that Hoito holds his hand softly, never lets go, because they shift, over time, and she forgets to add their surname even though she never quite addresses them by personal name because that would be awfully rude, also means she has a pang in her gut, and she makes sure she visits Kakashi-sensei. He doesn't get out a lot, confined as he is, and Sakura thinks he can see the tension in him lessen when she shows up. Maybe she's making it up. Making she's just seeing things that aren't there. But she doesn't know if Kakashi-sensei has any friends, not really, not since Guy-sensei's mission is long and Kakashi-sensei can't leave the apartment anywhere near as easy as before, so she shows up and chatters at him and leans into his side and grins at him. She meets for lunch with Ino and talks at Hoito and Ryo and distracts them and tries to work out that Uzumaki language so she can help Karen and meets Naruto's worried eyes over her and just hopes, with all her heart, that Sasuke is okay. Sasuke stares at himself in the mirror. It's his parents' mirror. The last time furniture had been added to this house, he had been 8 years old, and there had been no need for him to have a full-length mirror in his bedroom. He could have dragged one over from another house, but he hasn't. He doesn't like picking through them like a carrion bird trying for its next meal. He stands, and he surveys himself. His cheeks are pinched, he hasn't been eating as much as he should, he thinks, and it's starting to show. Hair is messy, and starting to grow, and he either needs to take a kunao to it soon or just let it grow out long enough to pull back, and he's not sure which option is better. Sasuke's clothes fit him right, but they aren't really Sasuke's, are they? They're Uchiha Izumi's. Today, he wears her dress. He's not going anywhere today, no lessons with Shizune, no painstakingly working his way through chakra control lessons, so he had thrown on the dress that had been crumpled in the corner of his bag and yet unwashed. He hasn't done laundry for a bit, and now he stares at himself in the mirror. It's Shizune-sensei, he tries to remind himself, but it's half-hearted at best. It had taken time for Kakashi-sensei to become such, same with Yamato-sensei, and she has yet to prove herself to him the way that they have. He stands, the last of the Uchiha, in his parents' bedroom. He is training to be a Mednin. He is so attached to his team that it hurts, so much that not talking to them has left him hollowed out, empty, a slate, but perhaps good, because he can fill that with thoughts. Perhaps bad, because thinking has never been good for him, not since he had lost everyone. He screams because his brother, because a murderer, doesn't look his way and screams when he thinks of their deaths and screams when he loses someone he barely knows, over Enko-sensei's death when he had never called her such when she was alive. He wears the clothes of Uchiha Izumi, of a girl, and he wonders after Naruto's feelings towards him and whether he echoes them, the same, or if he's just too reliant. He feels more like solving the mysteries of other clans, versus chasing after his own. He's terrified to try to seek the next stage of his Sharingan, of his clan's pride and joy. He allies himself with the next leader of the Hyugas and holds hands with his teammates like a child and cries into his teacher whom his father apparently hated and he. Uchiha Sasuke stands in his parents' bedroom and wonders if they'd like who he's become. He's not sure if he does. Chapter 70, Faces in the Mirror, Teamwork. Sasuke doesn't see his team for weeks. Well, he does in passing. He sees Naruto in the street. On occasion, he looks at him, and Sasuke shakes his head, and Naruto nods and they keep going. Sakura thinks she's subtle, when she hides to watch him, but she doesn't approach so he doesn't say anything. He eats at Ichiraku one time, and Karen happens to be coming in at the same time. They look at each other and she sits next to him. He very carefully does not bring up the last time they had a conversation, and neither does she. Instead, she gives him a simple olive branch, a simple offer for the future. I'm working on a seal, she says, tucking into her ramen. It'll stop others from overhearing conversations. Sasuke feels like something like that had to already have been designed. It's so useful, but at the same time he doesn't know anything about seals. Maybe they don't share that kind of thing. So he gives a slight nod of his head. Good, he says, and they say nothing more. He doesn't visit Kakashi-sensei, not wanting to accidentally run into his teammates, and he avoids Ichiraku after that, as well, and it feels empty. Gaping. Hollow. It's almost like a hunger clawing at him, except it's a want for his team, for the warmth they provide, and it's terrifying and humbling and consuming all at once, and Sasuke lays on his floor and tries to breathe. In a way it's similar to how he felt when he lost it all, this terrifying disconnect between body and mind, and it makes sense given what started it all. He can't think of what Karen said, about what she saw in the genjutsu, about what it could mean. Sasuke focuses on his training, focuses on chakra control exercises and the wavering beginnings of healing with Shizune, and doesn't think about that. And in the end, he only reunites when he has to. One afternoon, when he's given up becoming one with the floor and is instead tossing shuriken at the training poles behind his home, hitting on the mark almost every single time, Pakun appears. "Yo," he says, in a poof of smoke, and Sasuke glances at him. "What?" The pug wrinkles up his face at him, a feat which Sasuke didn't think was possible considering how wrinkled he is already, but forges on. "Meet your team at the bridge tomorrow," he says, scratching at an ear with a paw, seemingly nonchalant. "Captain's orders." Sasuke doesn't want to. He wants to exist in this limbo again, where he doesn't have to think about things, and doesn't have to worry about his team. But he doesn't have a choice anymore, and so he nods. "Fine," he says, and Pakun nods back and disappears. "Captain's orders, huh? Another mission? But, Kakashi-sensei." Sasuke refuses to let himself think about it. The debate over whether or not it's going to be Kakashi-sensei or Yamato-sensei is the only reason that Sasuke's on time the next day. If it's Kakashi-sensei, he doesn't have to be on time, he can linger at home for hours and avoid his team as much as he can, and it won't matter. But if it's Yamato-sensei, he'll be right on time, so Sasuke can't wait. So, in the end, he's there right on schedule, the first aside from Sakura. She's leaning against the side of the bridge, fiddling with her gloves, and when she turns to smile at him, he realizes she's done covering her scar. It's out, in full force, snaking up her neck and face, visible on one of her arms. He doesn't stare. He won't do that. "Hi, Sasuke," she says softly, like she's talking to an animal that will spook the moment she gets too close. "Are you doing okay?" Sasuke leans against the opposite bridge railing, but not directly across from her. He shoves his hands in his pockets, he doesn't look at her. "Fine," he says, as they both dance around the obvious issue, because he does not want to talk about the Uchiha thing. "Oh," she says. "That's, good." He doesn't like it being awkward, doesn't like it feeling like this, but doesn't know how to change it until they smooth by this. Fortunately, Naruto and Karen don't leave them waiting long, racing each other there. Karen wins, and she gives them a grin. A tired one, because the bags under her eyes are worse than Sasuke's own, but a grin nonetheless. "Hey, guys," she says. Naruto comes up behind her with a scowl. "It's no fair," he whines. "You train with Lee, no wonder you're getting so fast." Sakura rolls her eyes. "Lee's been on a mission, she's been training on her own, dumbass." "Still. It's nice, a bomb, even if there's that awkwardness lingering in the air, the issues that no one is speaking of." "Actually," Karen says, pressing her glasses up her nose. "Team Guy is back." "Huh," says Sakura. "Do you think that's Dash?" "Good morning, my cute little students," says Kakashi, late but not that late, and they all turn to look at him. He's beaming at them, hand waving and eye curved into a smile, and he's riding on his dog's back. Kakashi-sensei's largest dog, Ox. Something like that. Walks towards them steadily, head bobbing, and Kakashi-sensei sits on his back, legs slung over the side, one hand curled around his dog's collar. "Sensei," Naruto says, staring. "What?" "Ma," he says, with a shrug. "Isn't this much easier than Wheels?" Sasuke is not, in fact, sure that's the case. It could be, he's just too off guard to think of anything else, but he doesn't quite say that. Instead, Kakashi-sensei keeps talking, grinning at all of them and their stunned faces. Come on," he says, and he must be really glad to be moving around on his dog, because he almost seems peppy, bright, spirited. It's more than a little terrifying. "We have a meeting with the Hokage." The dog's name is Bull, which Suzuki finds out on the way there when Karen politely asks. They forget, sometimes, that she hasn't been here the entire time. She wasn't there for dog hell training, she hasn't met every member of the pack, and Suzuki wonders how many things they just assume she knows and she never speaks up about them. They don't, however, find out what they're needed for, no matter how much Naruto and Sakura pester their teacher. He seems happy to be pestered, though. Happy to be out and about, even just riding on Bull, speaking with his team, and it makes Suzuki feel even worse for not visiting him all this time. How much did he want to be around them? How trapped did Kakashi-sensei feel? Suzuki thinks it would be one thing if you were used to it, used to staying home and being relatively immobile, but Kakashi-sensei has never been that way. He's not used to it. At the bottom of the tower, Kakashi-sensei winks at them. Or blinks. It's hard to tell sometimes. I'll meet you when you're done, he says, and he and Bull vanish in a puff of smoke. I wish we could do that, Sakura says. They could take the stairs like the civilians, but they're shinobi and even Karen knows how to walk up walls, so they dart up the sides of the building to the top and pop in the usual window. Every other genin is there, already waiting outside of the Hokage's office, and they blink at Team 7 as they climb instead. And you're finally here, the Hokage grumbles from the front of the room, and they slip in to stand straight among their fellow shinobi. Shizune gives Suzuki a smile from where she stands next to the Hokage, and Suzuki gives her a tiny nod in response. Right, says the Hokage. She's standing in the doorway to her office, surveying all 13 of them. Team Guy is to the far left, standing poised like proper shinobi, barring Rock Lee shifting his weight from side to side, clearly ready to move. Team 10 stands next to them, Shikamaru slouched and Ino's foot tracing circles on the ground and Chuji trying not to wiggle, but not succeeding. Next is Team 8, with Shino still, Kiba reaching up to pat Akamaru on his head, and Hinata pressing her fingers together. In Team 7, Naruto basically vibrates with excitement. Sakura exhales heavily and glances to Suzuki, gives him a nod. Karen pushes up her glasses and presses her lips together, and Suzuki uncurls his fists and then recurls them. This can only be about the Chunin exams. The Hokage confirms it but a moment later. If I could do what I wanted, she says, which is an interesting way to start a speech when you're the Hokage, I would promote every single one of you. She looks at them steadily. I've heard the reports, seen the clips. Even outside of the arena, you all fought well in the invasion, every single one of you deserves to be a Chunin. But I'm sure you can all imagine how it would look if I promoted every single one of you right after becoming Hokage. And after getting invaded, it would make them look weak. Yeah, he understands why she wouldn't do everyone. But Suzuki's fingernails dig into his skin. He wants this so badly. Rock Lee, she begins, and he takes a step forward, vibrating with excitement. Hyuga Hinata. Abarame Shino. Harano Sakura. Uzumaki Naruto. Yamanaka Ino. One by one, they all step forward. Naruto and Sakura look fit to burst, and Suzuki tries to swallow the resentment that builds in his chest. He doesn't, he shouldn't begrudge either of them, but when she says that all of them deserve it. Ino didn't even make it past the primaries. Why does she get it and not him? The Hokage smiles at all of them. She's not a very smiley person, but that's probably why it's nice to see. It feels real. Congratulations, she says. All 6 of you are Chunin. The rest of you, she looks past them, eyes sweeping over them all. Hyuga Neji. Shiranui Tenten. Inyazuka Kiba. Uchiha Suzuki. Uzumaki Karen. Nara Shikamaru. Akimichi Chuji, U7, I expect to be promoted next time. Understand? They all nod, and she claps her hands together. You can pick up your vests at the missions desk, she says. Team 10 and Team 7, stay. Huh. Obediently, Sakura, Naruto, and Ino step back into line, though they shoot each other grins, vibrating in place, as the other 2 teams head out. Sakura is standing next to him, so Suzuki glances at her. Congratulations, he says, trying not to sound as though it's painful to say. He apparently succeeds, because she turns her smile on him. Thanks, she says, but that's all she can say before the door shuts behind the other teams, and the Hokage clears her throat. Right, she says. This isn't a mission, relax, kids. At ease or whatever. She waves a hand, and they relax. Well, part of Team 7 does, everyone else was already relaxed. The Hokage draws a hand over her face. Need a drink, Sasuke thinks, she mutters, before she straightens up and slams a hand against the wall for emphasis. Everyone jumps. Right. Shizune. The woman nods, holding out an envelope to Ino, who takes it curiously, and then to Naruto, who takes his with wide eyes. You've both received responses from Suna, she says, taking over. And Naruto, you have yours from Omegakure as well. Please give your next letters to either me or your senseis, alright. As they nod and clearly try not to open them and read them right that very second, a knot of tension Sasuke didn't even know he had unfurls, just a little. Kakashi sensei is still their sensei, all 4 of them. Team 7 won't get disbanded just because half of them are Chunin. It's a relief. The Hokage nods. Team 10, you're dismissed, she says, and Team 7 watches them leave, clearly curious as to why they're staying but also eager to look at the letter clutched in Ino's hand. Sasuke is also curious as well. Do they have a mission? Uzumaki Karen, she says, and Karen jumps a little. Yes. The Hokage eyes her for a moment. You're not officially a Konoha shinobi, yet. The Sandaime was talking to Kusagakure before she waves a hand. I've sent them a message, but until we get it all sorted out, you're not officially a genin. You can't go on missions. Which, now that Sasuke was thinking about it, she hadn't. Her missing headband wasn't exactly something none of them had thought about, but once she came, had she gone on anything? Going to the shrine wasn't a mission, just a trip, and when they had gone to get Lady Tsunade to convince her to be the Hokage, Karen hadn't been a part of that mission. Also, Sasuke thinks that counted as off the books, they didn't get paid for it, as far as he knows. She leans in. 4-man genin teams aren't exactly common, but Karen, do you want to stay on Team 7? Karen nods quickly. Yes. Please, Lady Hokage. The Hokage snorts at the title. Thought so. You 3 she jabs her finger at Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke in turn, are going on a mission in 2 days. You're first as a mostly Chunin team. And you she jabs her finger at Karen, now, are going to be working with Umino Irika to get ready to pass the test to be a genin. If you pass, once we finish talking to Kusa, you'll officially be a genin and part of Team 7. Understand? Karen's eyes are wet. Naruto's eyes are wet, too, and before Sasuke can do more than feel a bit of impending doom, the 2 Uzumakis are lurching forward to hug Lady Hokage, wrapping their arms around her, teary. Thank you, they say, and Sakura glances at him, seems to consider for half a second before turning her brain off, and pops forward to join them. Sasuke looks at the Hokage. She seems dumbstruck. He glances at Shizune. She smiles at him and motions for him to go on, and with a sigh, he steps forward to lean against Naruto's back, because apparently this is what he gets for letting his team be stupid for a few weeks. He is still, clearly, the sanest one in the group and isn't that kind of terrifying. After a moment, the Hokage wraps her arms around them in turn. Damn brats, she says, but it doesn't sound sincere, and her arm is warm against Sasuke's back. Check the description for the links to the author.